Ah, summertime, perfect for swimming pools, picnics, and running barefoot through a field of
Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
A common method for reinforcing the corners of picture frames is to insert some splines like these. My typical method is to cut slots in the corners and insert the splines after gluing the frame together. But there's another method that lets you glue up the frame and the splines all at once. This jig is sort of the reverse of the other one, but it's just as easy to make. I'm gonna make this out of 3/4 inch or 18 millimeter plywood. MDF is also a good choice because it's inexpensive and it has some extra weight to it. This piece only needs to be a little higher than my rip fence, so I'll cut it down a little. And I need this little piece to be square. I'll line the corners of the square piece up against the edge of the longer piece and glue it in place. I think I'll put a couple of screws in there so I don't have to wait for the glue to completely dry. Now I can raise my blade and square up this whole assembly. Using this jig is simple. First, I'm going to line it up alongside my rip fence to where it cuts through about the halfway point on that plywood triangle. I've cut all of the pieces for my picture frame with 45-degree miters on each end. I'll just clamp that flush to that triangle piece. Okay, so here's the important part. To make sure that all of the slots line up, you don't want to flip the board, but instead you want to keep the board running the same direction and make the cut on this back side. There are any number of ways you can cut the splines. I'm going to show you the way that I think is the strongest. And it starts by grabbing a scrap piece of lumber and resawing it to determine the thickness of the spline. I've got a zero clearance insert plate in my saw, and I'll set my fence up to what looks like about the right thickness of the spline. And I've got a feather board to help keep this pressed against the fence. So that gives me a pretty snug fit. If you want, you could just cut the splines down so they fit in this way, but they're not strong in that direction. So if you really want the strongest splines, you want to put them in this way with the grain going perpendicular. So you want to make sure you choose a board that's wider than the diagonal of your miter. Now I can cut the splines to their final width. Since this board is so thin, I'm gonna hold it down with a thicker board. I'll glue this up like any other picture frame, but first I'll glue the splines into those slots. And once this is dry, I can trim off the excess splines. And that's all there is to making this alternative type of spline. These are way stronger than my usual type of spline that only goes about halfway through the miter. And you can customize these however you like if you want to make them wider or whatever. The jig is super simple to use and to build. I hope you'll give it a shot. And I want to thank Casper for sponsoring this week's video. I think you're gonna like this month's spot. It's been almost 2 years since I built this bed for Wyatt, and while he loves sleeping on his Casper mattress, I can't help wondering if these Casper spots aren't having another effect on him.
Oh man, this hot and sour soup is fantastic.
Yeah, it reminds me of Casper mattresses. It's obsessively engineered and sold at a shockingly fair price.
And I'm really looking forward to this movie getting great reviews.
Did you know that with over 20,000 reviews and an average of 4.8 stars, Casper is quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress?
That movie was great, but oh man, those seats were uncomfortable.
If they were a Casper mattress, they'd have just the right amount of safety, just the right amount of bounce.
Wow, I gotta tell you, nothing beats getting out of the house to see a movie on the big screen.
Yeah, but did you know you can try a Casper mattress risk-free for 100 days in your own home?
Well, that was a lot of fun. What do you think we gotta do now?
I think we should go to casper.com/WWMM and use promo code WWMM at checkout to save $50 off our first mattress purchase.
Hey everybody, I really appreciate you spending a few minutes of your time with me today. If you found this spline cutting method useful, please leave a like, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to Woodworking for Mere Mortals. If you really like picture frames, and really, who doesn't? Check out my picture frame playlist with lots more ideas and inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe to my email newsletter to keep up to date with all things Mere Mortals, including the latest news on my upcoming woodworking training course. Links down in the description. Thanks for watching, everybody.